Social media used to look like this. Now it looks like this. Look at that difference. Something fundamental has broken, and people have finally had enough. They're not just taking breaks anymore, they're actually deleting their accounts, closing apps they've used for years and never looking back.
Your phone ruins your brain.
I was so addicted to this kind of false version of my life that it was just taking over. Just scroll.
For background, I deleted everything, Instagram, Twitter, everything. I just became my most authentic self.
Digital detox retreats are now booming. Entire communities have formed around quitting, so what finally pushed them over the edge? Well, social media has transformed into something antisocial, a broadcast network where you're the passive audience. And now with OpenAI's Sora 2 generating hyper-realistic videos that are almost indistinguishable from reality, social media slop is only going to accelerate. That's why right now we're seeing the average daily social media usage actually dropping in 2025 to 141 minutes per day, down from 143 minutes in 2024. And while this might not sound like much, this is actually the first decrease in average time spent since 2018. Representing a reversal of a trend that has been climbing for over a decade. As a recent study found that 34% of Gen Z social media users have quit one or more platforms entirely, while 64% have taken at least a temporary break. Meanwhile, 45% of Facebook users in the United States have considered leaving the social network, the highest of any platform. And now something's happening that's accelerating this exodus even faster. I'm sure you've seen how every other clip on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube is now a Sora 2 short. Whether it's Tupac stepping into a wrestling ring with Bob Marley, or cartoon characters driving away from roadside police stops. We are now entering a new era of social media where AI dominates every aspect of both creation, engagement, and consumption. It's not just a trend or a passing fad, it represents a fundamental change that we don't have any control over. For the first time, AI-generated content isn't just appearing on social media, it's dominating it. The videos now look real, they're engaging, and they rack up millions of views. Which is the tipping point people have been warning about. The moment when authentic human connection, the original premise of social media entirely, gets completely drowned out by artificial content optimized purely for engagement. When the platforms you join to stay in touch with friends become indistinguishable from junk mail. Just like emails used to be a way to connect with others, now it just fills up your inbox with a bunch of crap. And the exact same process is happening right now with social media. And we can see this transition so clearly if we jump back into when social media was genuinely social. If the internet today feels flooded with fake content and slop, one of the most valuable things you can do is learn how to tell what's real. That's where Try Hack Me comes in. It's a browser-based cybersecurity platform that teaches you how to think like a hacker, safely, legally, and hands-on. It's all browser-based, no setup needed. You can just open it and jump straight into real-world labs. You're not just reading about cybersecurity, you're doing it by hacking real machines and solving real scenarios that mirror actual cases from the industry. Let me show you one of their beginner challenges called OSINT. OSINT stands for Open Source Intelligence, finding information using public data. It starts with a single photo, drop it into a metadata tool, and then boom, the username pops out. A quick Google search will then pull up a Twitter account, and yep, that avatar answers one of the room's questions. Digging further, the same handle also links to a GitHub account that reveals two more answers, his email and the city he lives in. This is getting interesting, but I'm not going to spoil the rest. I challenge you to finish the room, especially if you can uncover the Wi-Fi network they used or the password. No peeking at the answers. So head to Try Hack Me and see if you can finish yourself. And use the link in the description below and start with OSINT. And if you want full access, you can also use my code MOON25 for 25% off the annual plan. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, social media platforms were essentially experiments aimed at making the internet more useful for creativity and connection. 6 Degrees, considered the first social network, launched in 1997. It was the first platform where you could actually create a profile and connect with others digitally. Friendster came in 2002 and developed the concept, focusing on helping people meet through mutual connections. LiveJournal allowed people to blog and build communities around shared interests. Most people born after the 1980s have probably never even heard of these platforms, but they were really minimalist, giving the users the technological tools they needed to communicate about hobbies and interests. Here's what LiveJournal describes itself as: a simple to use communication tool that lets you express yourself and connect with friends online. You can use LiveJournal in many different ways, as a private journal, a blog, a social network, and much more. Or in other words, pretty much everything social media should be. And then when MySpace arrived in 2003, it changed the game. You could customize your entire page with HTML, including backgrounds, layouts, and embedded music. People spent months designing their pages. Your profile felt like it belonged to you, giving people their own corner of the internet without owning a website. And here's an important observation about these early social media platforms. They supported our collective culture. The rock band The Arctic Monkeys got signed because fans created a MySpace page for them and uploaded demos. And whether it be Tyler the Creator or Calvin Harris, just so many of our favorite artists got their break through MySpace. Entire musical and artistic genres were created on social media, and people would regularly meet up with the friends they made. And we can't forget about MSN Messenger either. People couldn't wait to get home from school to log back on and talk to their friends again through MSN. Early Facebook in 2004 and Instagram in 2010 pretty much followed the same spirit. Your feed showed posts from friends in chronological order with the newest first. Instagram was all about photos with filters, a creative platform where hashtags circulated your work to new audiences. So much so that they barely even monetized the platform, with Instagram barely having any ads and hardly collecting any real data on its users. We could also see the same thing with early YouTube, when people had customizable pages and real authentic videos that made you feel a connection to the creator. But it was around 2009 when social media started changing. Facebook introduced EdgeRank, an algorithm that decided what you'd see based on engagement. Instead of chronological feeds showing your friends' posts, the platform now prioritized content with more likes, comments, and shares. This became far more intelligent with machine learning, which personalized content deeply to each user. And so within a few years, every major platform now followed suit. Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram all adopted engagement-focused algorithms. Facebook went public on the stock market in 2012 and Twitter in 2013. And so suddenly, connecting with friends and other wholesome or positive use cases for social media, such as gaining exposure for your artistic pursuits, now started to take a backseat once investors became involved. When Calvin Harris himself was interviewed in 2010 on how his social media break years later changed his career, his outlook on social media had already become much more pessimistic. Listen to what he has to say in this clip.
I really think the internet's just killing everything. Everything's getting worse. Nobody speaks to each other anymore. Nobody goes for walks, you know. There's no romance in the internet. It's a cold place. But you've got to use it. So it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like just being taken down from court to the cells in a pair of handcuffs. Just be like, alright, I'm going to the internet now.
At this point, the race was on to capture as much of everyone's attention as possible. Actual friends got pushed down somewhere you'd probably never scroll to. And yep, we do still have Instagram and Snapchat stories, but let's take a second to think about what they really are. Instagram stories are just there for 24 hours and they're more or less gone forever after that. They're a fleeting moment in a sea of noise. You might just get one brief glimpse of what your friends are doing, if they even are incentivized to post at all. Instagram also released this new feature that shows you what your friends are watching, but it's probably just the same random stuff you're watching and doesn't seem very useful for anyone. Short form video then took over everything, and soon once TikTok copied Vine and maximized the short form model, all social media companies would then follow suit, taking over everything once the technology allowed it to, which became especially toxic because it's built entirely around showing you peak moments, exotic holidays, perfect bodies, designer brands, crazy personalities, and 20-something entrepreneurs supposedly making 9-figure salaries. And so suddenly today, when you go on your For You page, it's probably rammed with algorithmic junk like everyone else's. Whether it's OnlyFans models everywhere trying to win subscriptions, people selling fake courses on how to make millions by sitting at home, or just random AI slop. As for Facebook today, it now just feels like a strange place and nothing like it once was. It's more of a community billboard for boomers or just people who want to complain about something. Most of the time, people just use it to sell random junk. Then TikTok came along and killed whatever was left of the truly social part of social media. People think TikTok's core innovation is vertical short-form video, but that's not the only thing. TikTok's real breakthrough was saying forget about following people. They rebuilt your feed from scratch based on what the algorithm thinks you'll watch, not who you choose to follow. It's one big black box that listens to everything you say, watches everything you do online, and then spits out content that might just seem random, but is actually extremely well tuned to its target audience. So by 2018, Meta's own internal data revealed something pretty damning that confirms everything we're getting at here. Only 17% of what you see on Facebook comes from friends. On Instagram, it's even worse, just 7%. Everything else is the algorithm's best guess of what will keep your thumb moving. Zuckerberg admitted it's not about friends anymore. He said it's about the entertainment. He said the friend part has gone down quite a bit, just as we see the huge rise in generational loneliness. It's as if social media has become one massive broadcast system, where we sit passively and watch it like a giant billboard flashing before our eyes, and call that entertainment, making social media just the modern day junk mail. But of course, none of this happened by accident. You see, back in 1998, Stanford psychologist B.J. Fogg launched the Persuasive Technology Lab. The goal here was to educate tech students, many of those involved in creating the early internet, and they were being educated on how to manipulate human psychology through technology. And among those students was Mike Krieger and Kevin Systrom, Instagram's founders. They learned the playbook and knew exactly what they were doing when they began to refine and optimize the platform using algorithms, which only truly became possible in the early 2010s. By 2020, internal research then showed Instagram was wrecking people's mental health. An internal report found links to body dysmorphia, eating disorders, and depression. They had the presentations, the data, and everything. But they chose, obviously, not to fix it, because to fix it would have meant less screen time, which meant less money. We all probably know by now that low-value brain-rot social media content is terrible for you. It wastes your time, your life, rewires your dopamine system, and leads to you never being able to focus on anything for long stretches. When social media is just a click away, the brain is always occupied, always being fed something in those quiet moments when we'd otherwise actually be using our brain for what it's there for, to actually think. Harvard professor Arthur Brooks recently discussed this in a thought-provoking podcast. He explains that our brains need idle time to activate the default mode network, the system that processes meaning and big life questions.
Why is boredom so bad? Well, because the default mode network makes us think about things that might be kind of uncomfortable.
With social media, we've nearly eliminated boredom. It's always there to avoid 15 seconds alone with your own ruminating thoughts, and the platform exploits this ruthlessly. As he mentions in this clip,
if every time you're slightly bored you pull out your phone, it's going to get harder and harder for you to find meaning, and that's the recipe for depression and anxiety and a sense of hollowness.
Brooks describes an experiment where people could sit quietly for 15 minutes or push a button giving them painful electric shocks. Most chose the shocks. That's the psychological vulnerability these platforms weaponize daily. People are now really starting to get sick of all of this, both literally and figuratively. The 2024 Elderman Trust Barometer, a global survey of 32,000 people across 28 countries, found that social media is now the least trusted industry. People are posting less, they're turning off notifications, setting screen time limits, and taking extended breaks from these apps. The BBC recently reported on the rise of digital detox travel, where resorts and retreats offer tech-free stays with no Wi-Fi and no TVs as a selling point. The 2025 Hilton Trends report found that 27% of adults planning vacations intend to cut back on social media during their holidays. Pinterest highlighted this in its 2025 Summer Trend report, noting that searches for digital detox ideas jumped 72%, while digital detox vision boards surged 273%. Interestingly, the digital detox movement seems strongest among Gen Z, the first generation raised entirely with social media and smartphones. A 2024 study reported that 64% of Gen Z users have taken a break from social media, with 34% having quit at least one platform entirely. Meanwhile, a 2025 survey found that 46% of Gen Zers are taking steps to limit their screen time. So all in all, it really does seem that social media is probably the misnomer of the century. There's nothing authentically social about it. In any sensible society, it would actually be considered antisocial, which now slowly is becoming. But the scariest thing about all of this is that social media hasn't reached some plateau like we might be tempted to think it has. It's still evolving and getting worse, finding new ways to take our life force, energy, time, and attention. We already know that so much of social media today is just theatre. The Lamborghini for that Forex trader is a rental. He's probably drowning in debt or being investigated by the SEC. The body transformation involves steroids. The woman's body is completely plastic. That spontaneous moment took nearly 100 attempts to get right. And that authentic travel video has been refilmed multiple times with strategists and dozens of editors. But it goes even deeper. Scroll through your feed right now and ask yourself how much of what you're really seeing is actually real in any sense whatsoever. Imperva is a cybersecurity company that's been tracking internet traffic since 2013, and their data shows something really crazy. Back in 2013, bots made up about 24% of internet traffic. By 2023, that number hit 49.6%, nearly half, and by 2024, bots became the majority, 51% of all internet traffic. For the first time in a decade, automated traffic surpassed actual humans. And these aren't helpful bots either. 37% of all internet traffic in 2024 was labelled as malicious bots, scams, misinformation, and manipulation. In Ireland, 71% of internet posts are made by bots. Think about that, that's 7 out of 10 posts. So why the sudden explosion? Well, AI has made it all incredibly easy to create lifelike content and create it at a scale no algorithm can ever detect. Which is why researchers are now predicting that by 2030, between 99% and 99.9% of online content will be AI generated. You might have already heard of the dead internet theory, this idea that most of the internet is just fake, just bots talking to bots with a handful of real humans sprinkled in. We've even made videos about this in the past. You can feel it already, scroll through the comments on any brainrot post and actually try to figure out which ones are even genuine. The platforms all know this is happening, but instead of fixing it, they're now doubling down and investing in it themselves. Meta created 28 fake AI user accounts in 2024 on Facebook and Instagram. These were full profiles with personalities and voices. They were forced to U-turn when people pushed back against this, but the plan was obvious, and they were just testing the waters. They're now building AI influencer bots that can DM fans, respond to comments, and create the illusion of interaction while being completely artificial. User-generated AI influencers are already here. Aitana Lopez is completely AI generated, not real and never existed, and she was making 10,000 euros a month last year. She posts content including lingerie photos on FanView, which is basically OnlyFans for AI. Lil Miquela, another AI influencer, pulls in $10 to $11 million a year with brand deals, magazine covers, and millions of Instagram followers. And God knows how many of those followers are AI themselves. But one of the most shocking realizations these platforms have seen is that AI influencers actually get 3 times higher engagement than real human influencers. Real humans average 1.9% engagement. AI gets 5.9%. They're more effective at capturing attention because they're algorithmically perfect from the ground up. No bad angles, no off days, no scandals unless they're programmed to have them. Just pure optimized, engaging, brainrot content. Some brands have started replacing humans entirely because of this. Mango launched a whole teen sportswear collection with 0 human models, all AI generated. Because why pay actual people when you can just generate infinite perfect images for basically free? Levi's did a similar campaign, and that's why AI companions represent another dimension to this bizarre new internet where humans and bots blend into one twisted construct. Character.ai has about 20 million monthly users spending an average of 93 minutes per day chatting with AI characters. Some people spend over 2 hours daily having conversations with bots. This is supposed to address loneliness, right? Give isolated people someone to talk to like ChatGPT. Except studies are now showing it's doing the complete opposite. MIT recently found that those having the most emotionally expressive conversations with chatbots also reported the highest levels of loneliness, which isn't much of a surprise as we're more isolated than ever, and the solution being offered is talking to a bot programmed to simulate caring about you by some giant faceless mega corporation. And now we're literally entering the next phase. AI generated video, which OpenAI promises will finally go mainstream with Sora 2. And it's only a matter of time before incredibly realistic but also very flexible AI video invades social media. Even Elon Musk is saying that by 2027, AI video will be making full-on movies. OpenAI's first Sora model never truly went mainstream, but Sora 2 has been a different story. As you probably know, it's an AI model that generates hyper-realistic video content. Look at that, if you're not actively looking for flaws, and let's be honest, who does that while scrolling, some may not even realize AI created those clips. In fact, more and more, you're gonna start realizing that videos you're watching are actually AI and not human. In the past, this used to be very obvious, but nowadays the line is being blurred. And while Sora 2 does have its flaws, which we'll get into in a moment, the current product is a massive upgrade from other models. It actually obeys the laws of physics to a certain degree. This is because it now understands concepts like weight, balance, and cause and effect. Water ripples and slashes when it's moved. Limbs don't just suddenly appear or move to another part of the body on a whim, like they did with the old video models. And what's even better about this iteration of the model is how it's improved consistency across multiple scenes. Earlier versions of Sora struggled to maintain characters, lighting, and clothing colors across different scenes. Now it keeps up the consistency when switching between cameras. It's not perfect as the characters and camera may jump to weird spots through different scenes, but it is a vast improvement. All these elements shine best in animated scenes. Just look at this clip. If you're not scanning the video frame by frame, you're not going to notice this is AI. However, one of the most remarkable things about this model is that it can render failures. Older models only ever showed success. Every jump landed and every goal scored, even if the laws of physics had to be broken slightly. Sora 2 in contrast has multiple examples of human props failing. What's even crazier is that it's not just generating visual footage. If you wanted audio in previous models, you'd have to find it or record it yourself and spend hours stitching it in and matching it to your clips. There's no need for that with Sora 2. The model creates dialogue, background ambience, and sound effects to match the generated visuals. Sora 2 also allows you to add your likeness to the app using the cameo feature. Just a quick one-time video of yourself with audio of course, and it will generate an avatar that looks and sounds just like you. From there, you can add your digital persona anywhere you want, create your own content from scratch, you can insert your avatar into other users' videos, or let your friends add you to their videos. But as cool as this technology is, it sparks some major concerns. The idea of placing yourself in crazy places with one prompt is awesome, but what happens if a stranger gets hold of your avatar, especially one with bad intentions? Deepfakes are already a massive issue, but Sora 2 takes things up to a disturbing new level. In fact, within days of launch, Taylor Lorenz reported that a stalker was already using Sora 2 to create AI videos of her. And as the app's guardrails aren't that reliable, some users have shown they can generate suggestive videos of people, and OpenAI's own system card admitted that Sora 2 failed to block prompts for generating videos with nudity or sexual content, using a real person's likeness 1.6% of the time. But this is only the start. The Washington Post's Drew Harwell had no trouble creating rage bait or videos of fake crimes. The fact that the app accepted his prompts for women splattered with white goo showed that you could potentially incriminate people with AI-generated footage, or people could use it to incriminate you. Sure, you might cry out that it's AI generated, but it can sow the seeds of doubt anyway, as studies have already shown that even when we know something is fake, the content can still change our opinion. And there's this concept called the liar's dividend, where people can palm off real footage as AI generated to avoid being held accountable for something. Now obviously misinformation isn't a new thing, but video kicks the realism and intensity up a gear, and it's only a matter of time before the models become more accurate and the videos longer and more detailed and in depth. Plus, at least OpenAI is a big company with a big profile and can be put under the spotlight and pressured. Eventually there will be open source AI video tools like Sora 2 with zero guardrails or restrictions whatsoever. As for social media, those stupid videos of the Queen fighting Stephen Hawking at the UFC might just seem entertaining for a brief moment, but what do they really mean to anyone? It's exactly like what Zuckerberg said. The friends aspect of social media has now gone. Its educational potential has declined, and now it's just pure absurd 5-second Sora 2 generated clips straight to the brain. But those absurd Sora 2 clips aren't even the biggest problem. There's something far more insidious happening that most people scrolling through their feeds have no idea about at all. As AI isn't just creating fake videos, it's destroying our ability to know what's true at all. It's why even Mr. Beast is now warning about AI coming for content creators. The YouTube channel Curse Gazette recently exposed this problem by accident while doing what they always do, making videos and fact-checking them. Their research process is intense. Every video involves over 100 hours of fact-checking. They then verify information with primary sources, ideally peer-reviewed papers, and then bring in expert reviewers to critique everything. So they definitely know what they're doing. But when AI research tools appeared, they did get excited. Finally, there was a tool that could help gather information faster. So they tested it out on a hypothetical video about brown dwarfs, those failed stars between planets and actual stars. The AI generated dozens of pages of fascinating information with links to sources. It looked incredible. Then they actually started fact-checking it, and that's when things got slightly disturbing. About 80% of the information did check out. It was all traceable to Wikipedia, papers, and legitimate sources. But the other 20%, the AI had generated compelling facts about broken dwarf superstorms, the nature of their interiors, and specific details that would make great content. But Curse Gazette couldn't find where any of this came from. So they asked topical experts who flagged the exact same facts, asking where they found this information. It turned out the AI had simply invented it and hallucinated details to make brown dwarfs more interesting than they actually are. But here's where the nightmare really begins. Curse Gazette kept investigating the sources the AI provided. One was supposedly an article from a news site written by a human journalist, but the structure felt familiar. It was the telltale sign of someone slightly rewording AI-generated text. They then ran it through an AI detection tool and it scored highly, though AI detectors are notoriously unreliable. But then a few weeks later, purely by chance, Kurzgesagt saw a brown dwarf video pop up on YouTube, and it contained every single false fact that the AI had made up. And so do you see what happens here? This is the feedback loop that's killing truth online. AI is inventing facts to make content more interesting. Then a content creator will use AI for research without thorough fact-checking. They then publish content containing those invented facts. That content then gets hundreds of thousands of views, becoming a legitimate source. The next person's AI scrapes that content as credible, and so now the false information is being confirmed by multiple sources. The misinformation then spreads exponentially across the internet, and the original lie becomes impossible to trace. The made-up facts are now true because they exist in multiple places online with engagement metrics to back them up. And guess what AI feeds off? That exact same content in a self-destructive feedback loop. Meaning that social media and the internet, the entire library of human knowledge, is now being corrupted from the inside out, and social media is the primary distribution channel. Which is why this is now signaling a new phase of social media. It started as human-to-human connection. You posted photos from your actual life and your friends commented. You could find new communities, cultures, and subcultures. That was phase 1. Then came the bots. At first they were obvious, but they quickly evolved, and suddenly you couldn't tell if an interaction was real or manufactured. This was phase 2, humans and bots mixed together, but at least the content itself was still mostly human created. Now we've crossed the line into phase 3. And the human layer is disappearing entirely. You're not just competing with bots for attention anymore, you're consuming content that was never touched by human hands at all. AI does the video, does the captions, it optimizes when to post it, and it even generates the comments responding to it. And the really disturbing part is that there's no human in the loop anymore to even question whether this is a good idea. The platforms want engagement, the AI then delivers engagement, and the result is something no one wants or ever even asked for. Something that's completely opposite of the original purpose of social media. Which is then what brings us to a critical point. Who actually gets to escape from all of this? You know, walking away from social media just sounds simple, but for millions of people, it's really not optional. Social media is now embedded into everything. To get a job, it probably takes place on LinkedIn and other social media sites. Businesses like this YouTube channel depend on YouTube. But for others, that can also be Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook to reach customers. Families that are scattered across countries still use Facebook and Instagram to stay connected. If you want to date a girl, you have to give her your Instagram. And now you can't even pick and choose a legitimate use for social media without having to expose yourself to all this slop. And the digital divide isn't just about who has access to technology anymore. It's about who can actually afford to refuse it at this point. Can you afford to go on a week digital detox when your entire work, social media, and life and family rely upon it? For most people, this just isn't even an option. But for the people who build these platforms, well, they know exactly how dangerous they are. Steve Jobs infamously didn't let his kids use iPads. The former Facebook president Sean Parker admitted they were exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. Chamath, who worked on Facebook's growth, said he feels tremendous guilt and that the short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops we've created are destroying how society works. Most tech executives who built all of this social media stuff, all the ones who made insane profits from it, are keeping their own children away from it, and they openly admit that none of this is healthy or good for us at all. It's a profit extraction machine that we can never switch off. Unless you're in the upper echelons of society, never needing to worry about work, or even connecting with anyone else around you, you're basically stuck into this loop. Which is why the people most harmed by social media, those whose mental health suffers, those whose entire lives revolve around social media, those whose time gets stolen, who fall into algorithm-driven rabbit holes, even though they don't want to, are often the ones who can't even afford to leave. And as we saw throughout this video, this divide will only deepen. The people trapped in the social media hellscape will find themselves surrounded by less and less humanity, and more artificial content designed purely to maximize engagement. And the people who made these platforms have essentially built a system they consider too toxic for their own families and children, and yet they deem it perfectly acceptable to profit from everyone else's addiction to it. Which brings us back to where we started. People are doing the last thing left they can do and are trying to leave at all costs, to get better sleep, clearer focus, and more presence, with some real conversations that don't get interrupted, conversations without Generation Z stares, to have boredom that actually leads to creativity instead of infinite scrolling, to become the person they want to be, to have their fear of missing out replaced by the joy of missing out. The benefits are obvious to everyone at this point, but like any addiction, quitting is far from easy, especially for most who can't afford to leave that easily. The platforms spend billions engineering addiction. They hire Stanford PhDs to explore human psychology and convert genuine connection into a commodity, then strip out the humans and completely outsource the entire thing, stealing all of the world's information, all to make you watch the next 10-second stupid reel. They started nearly 30 years ago and have been optimizing ever since. People are trying to leave and people are leaving in record numbers, and still this continues. Social media promised all of us to bring the world closer together, and it succeeded for a brief moment in time during the golden age of the internet. And then once it had us, it isolated us and monetized our insecurities, took away our time, and gave us loneliness, now replacing everything that was once human. And now it might just be that the only way to win is not to play at all. And if you can actually peel yourself away from all of this stuff, you can finally grasp just how bad it truly is.